On today's Locked On Jayhawks, little KU basketball, power forward, four-man, whatever you want to call it, position preview, as we're now a few weeks away from late night in the fog.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson. You can hear me as well Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. on KLWN in Lawrence with Rock Chalk Sports Talk. Thanks for making Locked On Jayhawks your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get any of your podcasts. You can also find us on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. And on today's edition of the show, we're previewing the KU men's basketball four-man / forward / power forward, whatever you want to call it, position here. As from this Friday, we will be 3 weeks away from late night in the fog. So we'll get to synopsis on all the players, minutes, projections, and if the unit is better or worse than a season ago. First, though, this episode of the show is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege or enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege for a free water bottle with any purchase. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. I'm wearing mine right now. We got them on. We're good to go. We're ready for the episode with Birddogs. All right, so four-man position preview for KU basketball. Which players could play the four for KU this year? This is one of the more, a little thinner positions for KU with guys that you could actually play there. KJ Adams is going to be your projected starter at the four-man spot this season. You have Kevin McCullar, who is more of a wing, but you'll play him some at the four as he did the season ago, and you'll continue to do that this year. Johnny Furphy is a little light on weight, but you'll probably play him at the four. I don't know. He'll probably get some minutes, a few minutes here or there at the four, and maybe he is your third guy at the four. Outside of that, you don't really have somebody else. You're not going to play Jamari McDowell at the four. He's like a 6'4", 6'5" guard, right? Like same with like Nick Timberlake. You're not going to play him at the four, and you're not going to play one of your point guards at the four. Dare I say, is Parker Braun your four-man here, hypothetically? Like, hypothetically, if there's an injury, if KJ Adams has a rolled ankle and he misses a week of play, you're probably going to try to get away with playing just Kevin McCullar and Johnny Furphy at the four. But, like, if you really had to, would you play two big basketball with Parker Braun at the four and Hunter Dickinson at the five? Obviously, at least Parker Braun and Hunter Dickinson can both shoot the ball a little bit. Parker Braun at like 28% for his career, and he is a good athlete. So I guess he is your kind of emergency four-man in the fourth string for that situation. Let's start with KJ Adams, 6'7". Something interesting on the KU basketball roster, on the official roster page for them. KJ Adams is now listed at 6'7", 235 pounds. Last season, he was listed at 225 pounds. So that means he's gained 10 pounds for this year. He's always been a muscular, physical, strong, athletic dude. Maybe this is a more accurate representation of what he is, because I always thought, like, okay, I feel like he's more than 225. Or maybe that means that he gained weight. Either way, I feel like that's a little bit more accurate what you're expecting with how strong and muscular he is. I mean, that dude has tree trunks for thighs. But he's going into his junior year, his third year of college basketball with Kansas. Comes off a year in which he was averaging 10.5 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, almost 2 assists per game, 62% from the floor. He was the Big 12's most improved player from a year ago. He averaged 27.3 minutes per game, which a very high minute total. But obviously last season he was playing the small ball five for you. So he has to transition to playing the four. Obviously there are questions how that transition is going to go, how he's going to play next to Hunter Dickinson. I think we answered some of those questions during the trip to the Bahamas with the games against, or the trip to Puerto Rico with the games against the Bahamian national team and the Puerto Rico select team. It looked good, and they were able to make things work with him and Hunter Dickinson. Obviously, that's a small sample against teams that aren't going to be playing college basketball, so you still do have to answer those questions at the start of this season, but I think that did quell at least some of the concerns headed into the year. Then you have Kevin McCullar. He is your sixth-year senior, 6'7", 212 pounds. 10.7 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 2.4 assists per game on 44% from the field, about 30% from three-point range. He played 29.6 minutes per game a season ago. That was him playing as mostly a three because Jalen was playing most of your minutes at the four, but there were times defensively he would switch on to the other player's four. There were times that he was in there as a four, that you can use him as a four once again this season. Johnny Furphy is one of your new recruits. He is a top 50 recruit in the country, comes in from Australia, had his late recruiting process, wasn't there with you for the trip to Puerto Rico, but somebody who there's been a lot of high praise about him. I believe the idea here with Johnny Furphy is to be around at Kansas for, at least 2 seasons, to where the idea is this year, maybe you can be a rotational player. And then next season, maybe you can become a starter, right? Kevin McCullar going to be gone from the lineup after this next season. That leaves a vacancy at, possibly the wing position. Nick Timberlake, who could be a starting 2 for you. Like, that could leave somebody on the wing that maybe Furphy becomes a starter as soon as his next season as a sophomore, but is an impactful rotational player this year. 6'8", 202 pounds, obviously as a true freshman here. You're going to try to add weight to him, but that is one thing that makes it a little bit difficult here is he's only 202 pounds. And if you're going to play him at the small ball 4, is he going to be pushed around a bit? Now, ideally, if you're playing him there, he's going to be next to a gigantic center in Hunter Dickinson. So that's going to help with some of that stuff. And more so, it's going to be about getting another wing on the floor. And, I was looking back, Svi was listed at like 205 pounds. I mean, Svi wasn't like an overly large guy. And honestly, Johnny Furphy might have like more height than Svi did. I don't know. They might be similar in height. Svi, I think, was listed at 6'8", but really he was like 6'7", 6'6", and his wingspan was like shorter than his height. I don't think that's the case with Johnny Furphy. So you actually have pretty similar, length, if not better, with similar size in terms of the weight to Svi, and he played the 4 for you basically for a full season, and you were just fine. So if Johnny Furphy's your third, 4-man, even though it's not ideal to only be 202 pounds playing the 4, you've shown that you can make it work as long as you can do a lot of the other stuff well and, box out and shoot the ball well and be a good offense player. And also, Johnny Furphy's not being asked to play 30 minutes a night like Svi was his, senior season at Kansas. So I think you're going to be fine there, even though you maybe would like to add a little bit more weight. And then, like I said, with Parker Braun, if he's your emergency 4, I assume this is not going to be something that we're not going to see Parker Braun next to Hunter Dickinson, that we're not going to see Parker Braun playing the 4 for Kansas. We didn't see it at all in the Puerto Rico trip, which isn't the be-all, end-all, but you would definitely think that would be the time for experimenting. If you wanted to play or see how that 2-big lineup would go, that would be the time to do it, because those games didn't really matter. And the fact that we didn't even see it there in an experiment probably tells you that it's not really something on the radar that they want to do. This would be something where if Parker Braun's playing the 4, it is out of absolute necessity because of foul trouble or injuries or for whatever reason. I guess hypothetically, if you were playing a team with a couple of big men, like if you played 2 traditional big men, like maybe if you played against Duke, but even then you might be like, well, shouldn't we play to our strength and play small and try to, out-quick them or outmaneuver them or outshoot them in some way and try to play to our strength as opposed to playing into their way of play. So not something I expect to see, but I guess he is your kind of emergency guy in that area. All right, we're going to continue on with our minutes projection for what we think is going to happen there at the 4 spot, and then what we think of this group overall as a unit. Is it better or worse than it was a season ago? First of this episode of the show is brought to you by Birddogs. Birddogs make you look good, and they have stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg area, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddogs do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit way better than those regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. And they fixed the issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you can get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice any of the movement. I use these things. I'm wearing Birddogs right now. It's great. I can use them like gym shorts because they're stretchy and they move around that way. They're super comfortable, so it feels great all throughout the day. But also they look good, so I'm wearing them to press conferences. I'm wearing them going out to dinner. I'm wearing them to the movies. I'm wearing them in whatever setting and feeling comfortable that I'm not going to be underdressed while also feeling good about it and also feeling like I can run around and there's going to be no issues. And also, I know the weather's starting to cool off, but it's still warm enough. They use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. That's huge for me. I sweat, so I love it. It keeps me cool and dry all day long, keeps me smelling good. Birddogs are functional for any occasion. Go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege to enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege at checkout for a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedoncollege for a free water bottle at checkout. You don't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you that. Our minutes projection for the 4-man spot for KU. This is, I think, very interesting to project how this is going to go. And obviously there was the news late last week about the Arterio Morris suspension for KU. For what it's worth, I've had to adjust some of the projections. We did our point guard preview already. We did our center preview already. Obviously, from the center position, it doesn't really affect any of the minutes with the Arterio Morris stuff because I just was having Parker Braun play the 8 minutes as the backup 5, and I was having Hunter Dickinson play the 32 minutes as center. That doesn't affect it. Where it does affect it, because I guess hypothetically he's suspended. He's not kicked off the team. So there is a world where Arterio Morris makes it back and he clears the charges and KU feels comfortable putting him back into the lineup. Not an avenue I would like to go down, but it is a possible avenue, even if it is a lower percentage play at that point. And then we're back to normal with the rotation. But for the time being, I have changed Arterio Morris to 0 minutes per game. I think that's a safe assumption to have right now, at least for the beginning of the season, and have taken that away. So like at point guard, which we already did the preview, I bumped DeJuan Harris up from 33 minutes to game to 35 minutes per game. That knocked Elmarco Jackson from the 7 backup 5 minutes to 5 minutes at the backup point guard, but leaves more minutes open at the 2 position and maybe more at the 3 position. And that will allow us to open things up a little bit more on the wing and changes things up a little bit in terms of, okay, maybe this guy gets more minutes here, and maybe that moves Kevin to getting more or less minutes here at the 4, so you can play more or less minutes at the 3. We'll get more into that in those other positional previews, but it does have a bit of an effect on the 4 position, at least in terms of divvying out some minutes and how much you want to get everybody. So let's start with KJ Adams. I have him getting 28 minutes per game, all of them coming at the 4 position. We talked a bit in the center position preview that sure, of course, it is a possible outcome that he's your backup 5 man instead of Parker Braun, or that Parker Braun and him share the backup 5 minutes. And Hunter Dickinson could get 28 minutes or 30 or 32. But the way that I put it here is I just had KJ playing all of his minutes at the 4, 28 minutes per game, which only leaves you 12 minutes per game to divvy out at the 4 position specifically. Now, I think the proper expectation, if you're putting a range, because I have it at 28, is somewhere between 25 and 30 minutes per game for KJ Adams, just overall, in general, for all the minutes he's going to play. I'm leaning closer to 28 to 30, and I really don't think 32 minutes per game for KJ is that crazy. So he played 27.3 minutes per game last year. 28 gets him as a slight improvement from a year before. Then again, you would say, okay, but that last year was him being the 5-man. This is a different position. It's a different fit. You have different players on the roster, right? Is it going to be the same? Well, we saw him play 29 minutes per game, 29 minutes and 4 seconds per game to be exact, in the games in Puerto Rico over the 3 games. That was more than anyone else. KJ Adams logged more minutes and minutes per game in those 3 games than anybody else on the KU roster. Why is that? Is that just you were testing him out more and trying to get him more comfortable at the position? Is it because you trust him the most? Is it not indicative of anything? Is it indicative of everything? I don't know. I don't have the answers to this, but I did think it was kind of telling at the very least. He had a game where he played like well over 30 minutes per game. He's a player that Bill Self very much trusts. And so when you have a roster that you don't have like a ton of depth overall, especially now with the Arterio Morris news, I think it makes a lot of sense that he could play 30 minutes per game. Absolutely. So I have it at 28, and that honestly might be conservative. Then again, if the pairing of KJ playing next to Hunter Dickinson leads to you struggling shooting the ball or spacing, and he only has to play 25 minutes per game, I guess that's possible as well. But I'm steering into the confidence here that I think KJ is going to play a big role on this team. And yeah, could get 28, 30, 32 minutes per game. So I have him at 28 for now. Then the other 12 minutes at the 4 position, I just have going all to Kevin McCullar at the backup 4 spot. And so when you add up the minutes that I have Kevin McCullar getting at the 3, which we'll get to our 3 preview in another week, that gives him, around or over 30 minutes per game for what Kevin's going to be playing. And that covers you at the 4 spot, 28 to KJ, 12 to Kevin McCullar, to where you have covered all of your minutes at the 4 position. And I think it's interesting because you feel good about your rebounding on this team based on either guy being at the 4. Kevin's a better rebounder than KJ is. I think KJ is a better offensive rebounder, but Kevin's a much better defensive rebounder. But either way, you feel good about having Hunter Dickinson at the 5 and what he's going to do rebounding for you, which is the biggest thing in this. But having either of those guys on the court, and possibly both of them together at the same time, with Kevin at the 3 and KJ at the 4, or even just one at the 4, you should be a good rebounding team. The question will be shooting really in either system. Now, what is interesting, the idea of, well, what if you don't have enough spacing and shooting on the floor when KJ's playing next to Hunter? I don't know, man. Like, we sure they would have enough shooting with Kevin playing next to Hunter at the 4 and 5. It's just going to depend on how much Kevin can improve his jump shot, which I think it will be improved. And I do think KJ showed enough of hitting mid-range shots last year in the Puerto Rico games, or what he's been working on, or, at least going 2 of 3 from 3 in the Puerto Rico games, that you feel okay about how, plus all of them are good passers, that they're going to be able to work off each other. So that's all I have. But if we go back to the center preview from last week, which you can find anywhere you get your podcast or on our YouTube page, if KJ does end up playing some backup 5 minutes, whether it's the split with Parker Braun or he's getting all the backup 5 minutes instead of Parker, and that's going to open up more minutes at the 4, then at that point, you're just meaning Kevin McCullar is going to have more minutes at the 4 and maybe a little less at the 3. And or Johnny Furphy is going to get some minutes at the 4. It's also possible that Johnny Furphy gives you, 5 minutes per game at the 4, and you give a few more to Kevin at the 3 and a few less to Kevin at the 4 position. And or KJ only gets, the 25 minutes per game, and then there's a few more minutes coming your way too, and that could be Johnny Furphy. The reason that I avoided that kind of thinking and projection here goes back to the Puerto Rico trip. Again, KJ played 29 minutes per game. That led the team. So if anything, I might be too low on KJ Adams. But I think realistically, the way you can look at it range-wise is KJ gives you somewhere between, I guess if he's the backup center and he's giving you 8 to 10 minutes there, then maybe that could lower the amount of minutes you're playing at the 4 to like 20 minutes per game. So the range would probably be like 20 to 32 minutes per game for KJ just at the 4 position. Not overall, just at the 4. I think overall his minute projection would be like 25 to 32, but just at the 4, 20 to 32. And then for Kevin, the minute projection at the 4 specifically could be anywhere between, say, 10 to 20 per game. And overall for him would be probably somewhere between 30 and 32. And then for Johnny Furphy at the 4, you're probably looking at somewhere between 0 to 5, with overall being somewhere between 5 to 15 or 5 to 20 or something like that. And then, Parker Braun's just your emergency guy at the 4 position. All right, we're going to finish up. Where is this position compared to last year in the Big 12, in the country, all sort of stuff like that coming up. But first, though, this episode of the show is brought to you by Jase Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase Case. The Jase Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics, emergency use, and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jase is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Finishing things up, where does this position group rank at the 4 spot, power forward to last year? Well, is the group better than last year? With center, we said obviously yes. With point guard, we said yes. Although I will update that without Arterio Morris. Maybe it's more of a conversation. I guess quick aside to the point guards here to give an update there. DeJuan Harris, you expect to be just as good, if not better, than he was a season ago. I still think Marco Jackson will be better than anything you had from Bobby Pettiford or Marco Jackson at the backup point guard. So from that case, I still think you are better, but you don't have as many bodies now without Arterio Morris there. So a little less depth, but better overall from your top 2 guys. Now, as far as the power forward spot, the 4-man spot, I don't think this group is better than they were last year, and that's not necessarily a knock against KJ or any of these guys. I think the lineups are going to work. I think KJ is going to have a good season. I think Kevin McCullar is really good, and when he's playing the 3 or the 4, will be very helpful. It's just that last year you had Jalen Wilson, who was a first-team All-American and a National Player of the Year candidate. So for them to be better, I guess you could say if the top guy is close to that and the depth is better, they could be better. But man, that is a high billing. That is very difficult to live up to. Jalen Wilson's going to have his jersey retired in Allen Fieldhouse. It's hard for me to say they're going to be better than they were last year at the 4 position. And last season, your backup 4 was still Kevin, who is this season's backup 4. So you're the same at the backup 4. I guess if you want to say Kevin McCullar will be slightly better this year than he was last year, then you could say a slight bump from where they were. And I guess last year you could say, well, the 3rd string at the 4 spot was who? Was it Grady Dick? Was it MJ Rice? Well, I expect Johnny Furphy to be better than MJ Rice, but not Grady Dick. So it depends how you look at it there. But you could say, like, okay, well, Johnny Furphy's slightly better or expected to be better than MJ Rice, although recruiting rankings had Rice higher. I just expect Furphy to be more of a ready-made player. So maybe it's slightly better there. Maybe Kevin is just a little bit better, so you have an improvement there. Even if KJ has a great season, he could average 12 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, shoot 60% from the floor, even shoot 30% from three, be a good defender. It's still going to be worse than last year just because, again, that guy at that position was your do-everything player. He was one of the top 5 players in college basketball. It is hard to be better than you were last year at this position. So as much as I still like this unit and think it's still good, it's not better than last year, but that's okay because you're probably better at point guard. You're better at center. And you've swapped an All-American at the 4 position for an All-American at the 5 position. So it just has kind of changed in how things go around. Now, how does this position unit rank in the Big 12 and in the country? Well, there's some other good 4-men in the Big 12. Jalen Bridges is really good at Baylor. He obviously had the really good game in Waco against Kansas. I don't know how to pronounce this one. Fousseyni Traore at BYU. He's really good. He's more of like a bowling ball 4-man / 5-man. If Dylan Dessou is the 4 at Texas, he's really good, but I don't know. He might be more of a 5. Jaywan Roberts of Houston's good. Naquan Tomlin and Arthur Kaluma. That might be your biggest competition there at Kansas State. Tomlin can play the 4 or the 5, even some of the 3. Kaluma can play the 3 or the 4. That's a really good 4-man spot for Kansas State. Emmanuel Miller, Jacoby Cole's kind of that 4-5 man for TCU. That's good. If you're looking out to the country, Kyle Filipowski at Duke is going to be playing the 4. You can play some Mark Mitchell at the 4. They're going to be loaded there. So that might be your number 1 4-man destination in the country. Honestly, K-State would probably be in the top 5. Florida Atlantic's just got an all-around good team. It doesn't matter who they put at the 4. I'll be interested to see how like Arizona, Kentucky, Tennessee, Villanova play at the 4 because they have talented teams. Who's going to play the 4 for them? Will it be a guard? Will it be Hakeem Hart for Villanova? Will it be a 5-star freshman for Kentucky? How is Arizona going to play? Last year they played 2 big men essentially down there. Are they going to play more guard, right? Like those teams have potential to be up there. So I don't think KU will have the best 4 spot in the country. I do actually think they'll be on par or better or, just as good as some of the other teams. Like this should be a top 25 unit in the country at your 4 spot, which should be all you need as long as the big dogs carry the water and the big dogs eat like you expect at the point guard center position and with Kevin McCullar. So good enough position for you to win a title. Absolutely. And yes, I feel good about KJ Adams pairing with the center. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. We're going to have a crossover episode with Jake Hatch for BYU coming later this week. Nick Schwartz going to join us later this week. We got KU BYU preview later this week. Plenty more to come on Locked On Jayhawks. You can find us anywhere you get any of your shows or on our YouTube page. Like and subscribe to the show there. See you next time.